got YouTube window open, right? And we're live, I believe. Hello, everybody. Hello, Dan. Fancy meeting you here.
Hello. I know, what a coincidence.
It's like a dream. It's lovely to be with somebody. I think people get tired of me going on and on, blah blah blah. So it's nice to have something new. And I know your wife does about you. She told me. Who's here? We've got Elizabeth. Hello, Elizabeth. And hello, Michelle. Hello, Alan. Hello, Daniela. Love to see you all. Lovely to see you all. Magdalena. And very nice to have you. This is a very special session. Let me just explain what's going on here, because Dan, or Daniel, if you prefer, which do you prefer, Dan? Daniel? Should we call you Dan or Daniel?
Daniel, I suppose. You can call me whatever you like. I'll
kind of interchange. I'll go between one and the other, just for variety.
Okay.
So we've known Daniel and I have known each other for many years. Is that right, Dan?
We have. You're doing well so far. We have probably 20. In fact, 22 years maybe.
22 years. We've known each other since the days before digital photography.
This is correct.
And I know that because I've got a non-digital photograph to prove it of me and you. We were just looking at this a second ago. Neither of us can remember. We know where it was. That's quite simple. But we don't know when it was. When would you say this was taken, everybody? See if you can guess the date. Not that we can offer you a prize because we don't really know what the answer is. What do you think?
Because we don't know the answer. I don't know. Let's find out what people think. I mean, I kind of gave it away because I said how long we've known each other.
I guess so.
This was a little bit after. This was a bit after we knew. This was by the time we were good friends, so this might be a bit later.
So we could say maybe 18 years ago.
Yeah. No. Yeah. It'd be more than that. It'd be 19 years ago, definitely, at least. It looks very 90s.
Well, that's the thing about the noughties. Looking back, if you look back the 90s, it always looks 80s. If you look back the 80s, it always looks 70s. If you look back the noughties, it always looks 90s. That's my theory anyway.
It's an interesting theory. I think this is early noughties, isn't it? This is like 2002, something like that. So yeah, about 21 years ago.
I wonder if anyone knows that bar. It's a lovely shirt, actually. Do you still have that shirt? Do you still have that?
Yeah, I haven't got that one
cardigan?
No. It's still very much along the same sort of style as the noughties, but no, I can't remember what happened to that shirt.
It's funny that we're both wearing cardigans, isn't it?
Yeah, I think mine's more of a sweatshirt. Yours is definitely it's a cool cardi. It's not a traditional square cardigan like our dads might wear.
We have to credit our friend Stephanie for taking this photograph and for scanning it as well, because that's what you had to do in the days before digital photography. You had to scan photographs.
Was that Steph? Okay.
Yeah. And then when she was here, you might not even remember this, Daniel. This is what happens as you get older. But Steph was visiting Barcelona a couple of years ago, and we recreated this photograph. Do you even remember that?
So I don't remember. I don't know. No, I don't think I've seen that photo before. But yeah, I have got that shirt. So that wasn't that long ago.
This is about 3 years ago.
Was it?
But isn't that lovely? Because I think if that had been a digital photograph, this one here, I think we would probably know nothing about it. The fact that it existed in physical form meant it could not be forgotten. And it was enough for Steph to go and scan it and turn it into digital format and send it our way, which is a very lovely thing for her to do. And then we go back and recreate it, don't we?
Yeah, that's lovely. Yeah. No, but you're right. I can think, because they were prized possessions photos. If you went on holiday, you came back with how many photos? 36, was it? In a cartridge?
unless you want to really go crazy
like
and you
that.
buy
36
2
photos.
rolls. But I never did that.
Yeah, exactly.
Didn't have enough
And
money.
then they've got your thumb over them and stuff.
Hey, I'll tell you something that's
that's
changed.
lovely.
Something that's changed over the years here, Dan. Look at the sign. This bar is called the Tres Toms, as we call it. If you're Catalan, I suppose it's Els Tres Toms. Nobody knows what a tom is. I bet you don't know, but I don't even know. But look, the sign has changed. It's changed its inclination over the years. Just, that's really interesting, isn't it? I wonder if the bar owners know that.
Yeah, well, maybe,
yeah. One, it's like that.
I think maybe it's subsidence.
The other, it's like that. Subsidence.
It's the leaning restaurant of Barcelona, and they don't realize because they haven't noticed. But if we showed them the photos, they'd be shocked.
They'd be aghast. I love that word, aghast. It's the most onomatopoeic word, isn't it? Aghast. Show me I didn't even introduce Dan. I just said he's my mate. I've known him for ages. But Daniel is an ELT force to be reckoned with. I've learned a lot from Daniel over the years. And so it's great to have a friend who's also a professional colleague. And Daniel, you'll maybe know him from his work. One of the founding members of the ELT Footprint, the Facebook group. He is a key author of National Geographic Learning. So if you have any course books or from National Geographic Learning, have a look at them and you might see Daniel's name on it. He's not the only author, but he's one of the top men and women. Not that he's a woman, but you know what I mean.
One of them, yeah.
One of them. He's also a trainer, a tutor on the Trinity, the Cert TESOL and the diploma, the DIP TESOL. And right. I guess that's where we first met, because you were working as the DOS, weren't you, at Oxford House here in Barcelona when we met? And right. he's got 2 awesome kids, Rosie and Ollie, and a lovely wife that shares a birthday with me, Jo. And right. So and
for the first time this year, I missed Joe's birthday in order to celebrate with you. So that was a treat. We had a good weekend, didn't we? Last weekend. Anyway, happy birthday, Jamie. Happy birthday for everyone. Say happy birthday to Jamie.
They weren't supposed. I shouldn't have said that. It's all right. 51. But you're 51. Yeah. Yes, hello from Greece and hello from Poland and hello from Barcelona, Chris, and everybody. So should we say what this is all about then, Dan? Do you know what this is all about?
Well, I hope so, unless you've been leading me up the garden path for the last couple of weeks.
Well, tell me about your I mean, we've spoken about photographs in the days before digital photography, and my photographs from the days before digital photography belong in a shoebox underneath my bed. My photographs from the days of digital photography are an absolute disaster. It makes me quite depressed to think how disorganized they are. Tell about your photographic life, Dan.
Same.
Really?
Oh, that's a good question. I was quite into photography. I did a photography GCSE as a kind of evening class when I was about 17. Because I was really into it. I had a Pentax, a proper camera, one of those SLR cameras, and I took black and white because I could develop it myself. So I've done the black and white developing and really got into it. I wasn't particularly good. I don't consider many of my photos particularly good from them, but I was into it and I enjoyed it. And I did take lots of photos. In fact, I've always been the kind of family photographer, so no one else bothers taking photos because they know I take them. But yeah, I've got a couple of boxes, actually, a couple of shoe boxes full of, again, similarly very disorganized. And I don't look at them enough because I think you're right, they are special. But I do look at my digital photos. I often find myself browsing on my phone and stuff and reminiscing and things. They're important.
Well, that's one good thing, because you can't really take your boxes of your shoe boxes full of photographs out to the cafe, or you can, but you're not going to do it by mistake or incidentally, are you? We tend not to carry around shoeboxes full of photographs.
This is true.
Yeah, so that's one good thing, I suppose.
Yeah. So yeah, and more recent years, well, you'll find out I'm quite into birds and bird watching a little bit later on, and I'm toying with the idea of getting a camera, but I feel that the camera gets in the way of the experience. So I'm not sure whether I want to become a bird photographer, because you just spend your whole time faffing around with equipment. I'd much rather just be out there with my binoculars.
I know that Dan loves his birds because he saw my phone and was able to identify that bird last week. He said, "Oh, that's a waxwing," and I was very impressed.
Actually, I think I said a wax bill. I got it wrong, didn't I?
You don't need to. You don't need to worry about the details.
You corrected me. You corrected me.
Yeah, it's true, isn't it? It's you are in fact, it's funny because we were talking about exercise last weekend, and I said to Dan, "Do you get any exercise these days?" And he said, "Bird watching." But to explain, when Dan goes bird watching, that involves getting on his bike and cycling for many miles, right?
That's right. Yeah, it's a bit of cycling and lots of walking involved. So that is exercise. It's an exercise suitable for a man of my age stage in life. Oh, there's
Chris, I think, saying me too. Either how he feels about photography or bird watching. There was a delay.
Okay. Oh, that would be interesting, Chris. And we'll talk later. I love geeking out on birds. And I wanted to say hello to Michelle, just because she's one of the only person I've recognised in the list. So hi, Michelle.
So what we're going to do then, this is a format that we're going to try, and if any of you would like to try this, share your 3 favorite photographs, we can do it. And Dan's my very first guest who's going to share his 3 favorite photographs. We should explain, we were talking about this a bit before, and really your 3 favorite photographs, meaning maybe the photographs which are most meaningful to you, are probably not the ones Dan is going to share, because they'll probably be pictures of his kids when they were babies, or moments from his relationship, or whatever, you know. But Dan took to this kind of in the way I was expecting. He was looking for stories, weren't you, Dan?
That's it. Stories and things I want to talk about, as opposed to just cute pictures of my kids, which I don't think would be nearly as interesting to people.
It all depends on how you sell it, doesn't it? Yeah, I'm sure we would be interested if you could, you know. But there's just 2 rules, and the rules are: number 1, you have to withhold the image and communicate the photograph like a storyteller would, and we call that picture telling. Now, Dan said he's only going to do that with 1 photograph, but he's wrong. He's going to do it with all 3, as we will see. And the other rule is do you remember the second rule, Dan? Don't
talk about Fight Club. No, I don't know.
No sunsets.
Oh, no sunsets. Yeah, I'm sunset free. I'm sunset free.
Just say no to sunsets. If you see somebody on a beach taking a photograph of a sunset, or indeed anywhere taking a photograph of sunset, go up to them, pull the mobile phone out of their hand or their camera or whatever, and throw it in the sea. Say, enjoy it for what it is. Never take photographs of sunsets, which are going to end up lost on your mobile phone forever. What are you going to say? Oh God, I won't look at this photograph of a sun. As some people do, actually, because sometimes when I give this
tell them that. Go on. Sorry, tell them that they're clogging up the internet with all their millions of images, wasted images.
That's right. Look, you've got you were my tutor in DIP, and you recently met in
Stella. Yeah, hi Stella. We met on Saturday. It was really nice to see you here. You impressed with my ability to read Greek.
Yeah, I was anyway. So well, let's move into the main part of this then, Dan. You're going to tell us the story of the first image that you've chosen. Is that right? Image number 1. Photograph number 1, Dan.
Image number 1. Okay, so image number 1 is a holiday snap, and the reason I've chosen this one is because it sort of links in a little bit with the kind of the Jamie Keddy methodology of images a little bit, and it's an idea I stole from his images book. the holiday, the snap, I want you to listen, and I'll describe the photo, and I want you to draw it, Jamie. Okay, you up for that? Have you got a pen and paper?
Well, I'm prepared because you did ask me beforehand, so I do have a pen and paper.
Good.
I'm not a good drawer, but I always do it because you have to.
Yeah, because you have to, and we do want to see your drawing skills in action. And because normally you get other people to do this, but I'm getting you to do this time, so it's revenge time. So this is a holiday snap, as I said, and it's Josh and my brother Joshua and I were on holiday together. There were other people, but they're not in the photo. And it's a color photograph, even though it was a long time ago, because it was taken in 1998, so a little bit before that photo of you and me, a few years before that one of us next to Els Tres Tombs. And it's in Greece. And in the photo, you can see 3 young men, and they're sitting on an old boat. And one of those young men is me. I think I was 26 at the time. And so we're sitting on an old boat. I'm in the middle, and on my left, so on the right of the picture, is my younger brother Josh. And on my right, so on the left of the picture, is a guy called John, who we met on holiday. And that's it. We're kind of sitting on the rim of the boat, on the edge of the boat. So it's like a big old rowing boat, and we're sitting on the edge. And our feet are sort of hanging inside the boat, if you like. So it's kind of, we're at the back of the boat, sitting with our legs over the boat, facing the camera. And as I said, the boat's very old. It's kind of falling apart. It's sort of not used anymore. And so you can see some old struts of wood sort of under our feet. But a lot of them are kind of broken. And then in the background, there's not much to see. There's a few rocks just on the ground. And then in terms of what we're doing, well, Josh and I are waving. We're waving at the camera. But John, who's the one, remember, on the left of the picture, John, he's the only one smiling. So the guy on the left is smiling, and the other, me and Josh on the right are not smiling, but we're waving. And that's it. How are you getting on with your drawing, Jamie?
Good. I'm wondering why you're not smiling.
Okay.
There's no reason for that, is there?
Yes, that's the question. There is a reason for that, yes, and that's a key question. So for those of you listening, if you want to type in the chat box, why do you think we're not smiling? So that's a question. There's any number of answers there, aren't there? I'll be very surprised if you get the correct answer, but let's see what people say.
Is it possible that you are smiling, but I just can't see it?
There we go. Yes, it is actually. So that's a big clue. If you can't see it, why not? The boat is not seaworthy and about to go down. Well, DJ, you're close to the answer there. But John is smiling. So and he's in the same boat as us, so to speak. We had bad prawns the night before. It wasn't that. No, we ate very well. We are not seasick in any shape or form, Michelle.
Okay.
Well, let's have a look at your photo and your picture, Jamie.
Okay, so this is what I've drawn. There's you in the middle. It's with John on the left, and you're Josh on the right. I've called the name Boaty.
Yeah.
And the reason that you might be smiling but we can't
face.
see, that's right, Boaty McBoatface. It's because you're wearing masks. You're wearing a mask. I don't really know what the masks are. I think maybe it looks like a sort of generic mask, but then it's not very generic because maybe it's a lion mask or a daisy mask, and your brother's wearing I don't know, it's a box mask with I don't really know, Tin Man and Lion out of Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, it looks like it's like a big Africa, like one of those. Sorry, maybe one of those African masks, like wooden masks, something like that. That's a very good guess. And yeah, go on.
Michelle's drawn a picture. How could you get the picture to us, Michelle? You could email it to me or Dan? Or
well, I tell you what, Michelle, why don't you WhatsApp it to me, Michelle? I'll get it on my WhatsApp, Michelle, and we can show your photo as well. Because that would be good.
DJ says that maybe you've just remembered you couldn't swim.
Very good. Well, you're very accurate. You've got. I couldn't swim.
That's a good guess.
Swim. The boat was the only way off the island. We were on an island. That is correct. But the boat, there are lots of boats off the island. Stella says, I don't trust the boat. Well, if you see the boat, you will see the boat in a minute. You wouldn't trust it either. But that's not the reason we're not smiling. And actually, Jamie, you're very close because you mentioned masks. I don't think you want to see it. Oh, really? Oh, we do want to see it. If you don't want us to see it, Michelle, that we definitely do want to see your picture. Elizabeth asks, is there a hole in your boat? And you'll see there are plenty of holes in this boat.
A holy boat.
So it's a holy boat. Oh, I've had a WhatsApp. Hold on. Yes, here we go. That's not bad. That's not bad. It looks like we're wearing capes or something. I don't know if you can see that, but this is Michelle's picture.
That's a good picture, isn't it?
Focus in.
Let me just.
Bad, is it?
Yeah, that's good.
So she's got the boat. She's got the feet hanging on inside of the boat. We're all sitting there. We're not smiling, but John is. So she's from a comprehension point of view, she's done really well. Maybe not from an art point of view, but that's not what it's about, is it?
I'd say that.
Lots of ideas coming in, by the way.
I like that one. A hole in your boat, jellyfish. I don't think you gave Michelle enough praise there for her drawing. I think she deserves more.
No, it was good. It was good. Yeah. It was much more. Yeah, it was much more dynamic than yours. There's a lot more kind of movement and joy in that one. That's good.
That's right. What did you call these horizontal?
It's time to show the image.
What did you call the pieces of wood that run?
Go on.
Run with the boat. The pieces of wood. I didn't know the word, but I worked struts. I worked it out from context. Not always possible, but I did there.
Very good. I might pre-teach that one.
So you want to go?
And the other one I would pre-teach is rim, the rim of the boat.
Ah, yes. Now you want to go. There was some text that you had as well. Do you want to show the boat? Do you want to show the photograph?
So yeah, let's show the photograph. Let's show the actual photograph, and we'll see where why we weren't smiling.
Are you ready for the photograph, everybody?
And why Jamie was very close.
Here's the photograph.
There we go. So this is in Kos in Greece. And there we go. Uzo, yeah, DJ. Yeah, we probably had Uzo the night before, but that's not the reason we weren't smiling. There we go. So yeah, masks. You were right about masks, Jamie. We had our masks on, but the reason we couldn't see us smiling is we also had our regulators in our mouths. So probably smiling behind the regulator.
Yeah, you can.
John is taking his regulator out in order to smile.
So John is wearing a mask, but he's still smiling. So it was the regulators, wasn't it? And that's another new word for me. Yeah. Despite having scuba dived, I forgot what a regulator was, which is not very good.
Have you? Where did you scuba dive, Jamie?
I did my PADI in Colombia, in Santa Marta, near Santa Marta. It was lovely, and so I'm qualified to dive, but I've forgotten that you call that thing you stick in your mouth a regulator. So Maybe I need to do a refresher course.
Yeah. What do you call the emergency regulator that everyone has a second backup one? Do you know what that's called?
No, I'm not sure.
I think it's called an octopus for some reason. I've never really understood why.
Ah, yes, I did
And
know that.
I'd need, yeah. And the real Greeks don't drink ouzo. That's for the goobers. What are goobers? Sipuro oraki. Ah. What's a goober, DJ? Is that like the tourists? What we would call the guiris in Spanish?
Yeah, sounds like that, isn't it?
It's called a BCD. That's right. I remember that. What was that? Yeah, goobers is tourists. Thank you, DJ.
Another word we worked out from its context. We're on fire.
Yeah, we're doing well, aren't we? Yeah, I've needed an octopus once. I had a scary moment, but that's another story. I got very in a lot of trouble once on another wreck dive. Actually, it was a much bigger wreck than this one though, and I needed someone else's octopus. Saved my life. Anyway, the BCD is the regulator. Yeah, I can't remember. I thought the BCD was the jacket. No, buoyancy control device. I think the BCD is that jacket you wear that inflates with air.
Yes,
DJ may be wrong. I'm not sure.
DJ, you were right about goobers, but we're not sure about your scuba diving equipment knowledge here. We're not saying you're wrong. We just don't want to have you as our next instructor.
Next diving instructor. Yeah. DJ, it was in Kos. It was in on the island of Kos. We were on holiday, and it was a good holiday.
Absolutely.
So yeah, now we can. So the reason I chose this photograph. Sorry. Yeah. I thought so. It's been me too. It's all very rusty. I wouldn't trust myself either. So the reason I chose this one, as I said, was it was a kind of one of those Jamie activities where you withhold the image. So it's an idea I got straight from the image one. But I was very pleased to think, I can use this photo with the same effect to have the kind of little twist at the end of the lesson. And normally I start with the idea is that the students then get to describe their own holiday snaps. And so I would start with a little warmer, and I've got this. I don't know anyone else that does this, but it's really easy. It's a great little image warmer which people can use. I'm going to demonstrate it here. So I tell the students before the class, I draw this. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, and it's a really easy thing to draw. There we go. A photo frame like that, and I tell my students I'm going to show them a very special photograph, and ask them about their photos and where they have their special photos in the living room or on the fridge door or in their bedroom. Do they have a special place for photos, that kind of thing? And then I show them the photo, but they're disappointed, of course, because I show them, but I pretend that there's a real photo there. So I say, isn't it lovely? Hasn't anyone got any questions about the photo? And there's normally somebody who'll say something like, where is the photo? And so I have to say, it's here. Can't you see? It's lovely, isn't it? Wink, wink. And eventually somebody gets the idea and says, who's in the photo? Or where is the photo? Where are you? And they start asking me questions, and I'm describing a real photo, but it's not, it's a photo I've got in my mind. So the reason this happened was because I wanted to do a photo warmer, but I didn't have my favorite photo with me because I'm a very disorganized teacher and I never plan ahead. So this was a kind of workaround, and it actually worked really well. And what it means is as well, the photos the students can then show their photos later. They in the warmer activity, they then do the same in pairs or small groups. So you've got and they draw. I get them to draw this and then show their partner. And I'm very silly. I sort of do things like, well, is it a portrait or landscape photo? So you're already kind of describing photos and vocabulary to do that. And the students then talk about their photos and say, this is a photo of me. Here's my mum in the middle and me on the left, and on the right is our dog. And they start talking about where they were and why it's special. So that's a little warmer. That's like 5 or 10 minutes. And then you can go into that activity that I've just done with you, with the withheld information, the little surprise, and that's the model for the students. So Jamie, I don't know if can you show then the texts that then the students, I would do some kind of dictogloss where I would read out the description again, and they make a note of all the keywords. I'm sure your teachers here are very familiar with dictogloss activities, and they reconstruct the text, and we can then compare my original with their reconstruction, and then we can look at some of the language. Jamie, have you got the next one, which is kind of looking at functional language, I think, about describing photos. So there we go. In red, you can see. It was taken, we can see in the middle, on my left, etc., in the background, that kind of thing. So there's some language that they can then use when they then go back to their photos from the warmer and describe them in more detail, or to other people or whatever. And then you might want to go into some language words, some grammar, an oral dictogloss in pairs. Yes, that's a great idea, Chris. So when they're then describing their photos, they write their own text based on this one with this language. And then they describe it to their partner, and their partner draws it. Is that what you mean, Chris? So this one, I've highlighted the relative clauses. So it might be a common feature of descriptions. So Chris is asking, why not an oral dictogloss in pairs? I think that's a great way to end the lesson.
It's a really nice...
There we go. That's a...
D. I love the idea of using a text like that for dictogloss. Well, I think I don't know about you, Dan, but one of the mistakes I've made over the years with dictogloss is to select texts which are too long. And part of the problem with that,
right,
obviously, is the more complex they are, there's more for students to remember. But the thing is, if you're describing an image in this way, students, part of the interpretations, part of the meaning making is to actually create a mental representation, a mental image. So the text isn't just a text. And so when you come to then reconstruct the text, what you're doing, in a sense, is translating that image that was put into your head back into words. And I've always been, I've always loved that as an approach to using those kind of texts. There's a lot of, you maybe know the Romeo and Juliet is one of the my favorites for doing that, the Romeo and Juliet text in the LessonStream, and the one in my book, the panda one. But yes, so nice idea.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think I got it originally from the panda one. Was where I got the inspiration.
Yeah, DJ's is a member, so in the LessonStream membership, as are you, Dan. So yeah, very aware of the Romeo and Juliet activity. Yes. And Stella likes your idea too.
Oh
yes. What have you dropped?
I dug out the original photo, by the way, because that scan that you showed is I scanned it quite a few years ago. Look what's happened to the photo. It's faded. It's even it's all gone green, and it's the colors starting to fade out of it. So that's one problem with the real photos. They need preservation, don't they?
That's right. Yeah, that's one disadvantage of the old days. Yeah. Do you like Paul Simon?
Yeah.
Do you know that song, Kodachrome, that he wrote?
I do.
Isn't that a great song? It's a love. You don't know Kodachrome? It's like a song about one man's love for photographs. Yeah, Kodachrome gives us those nice bright summers. I don't know the words, but it's a good song anyway. That's the main thing.
You sound just like him.
You can be Art Garfunkel, and I'll be Simon. Yeah,
Okay.
you do look quite funky.
I used to have the hair for it, but I don't anymore.
Well,
Yeah, whatever
I'm
happened to
losing
him?
mine.
Is he still alive?
Yeah, they are both. Yeah, in fact, I've watched their live concerts sometimes, and you'll. But yeah, if you don't know Kodachrome, and you've got this. Oh, it's a great song. Yeah. Anyway, I'm not going to try and sing it again.
Kodak,
That's
as in
just silly.
Kodak with a K.
Yeah, it's a song it's a brand name,
Is it
isn't it? And when you
Kodachrome.
with a K, and whenever they write Kodachrome as a title of the song, they also have to write TM trademark, which is unusual, isn't it, for a song?
Okay.
I can't think of any other songs like that. Can you? Yes, of course. There's Hoover.
No,
Don't forget Hoover. That song about one man's love for his vacuum cleaner, but Hoover. You know that song,
Hoover.
right? Hoover.
There is a song about Hoover from a film called Once, and he sings. He's the Hoover guy. He's the sucker Hoover. I can't remember. It's a really good song. Anyway,
is that right? But it doesn't have to. It's not called Hoover with an H with a TM, is it?
It doesn't. No, it doesn't have a TM on it. I don't think. I never noticed it anyway.
Yeah.
I don't think they can claim it as a TM anymore, can they? Because it's kind of out there. It's now generic, isn't it?
If Paul Simon was making a song about it, he would have to. They could say it's become generic and in everyday cultural use, but the lawyers would get on and say, yes, but a money-making venture like the song that you're writing, we want TM stamped on it, Simon, or Funkel, or Garfunkel. By the way, the thing about
I can imagine him creating what?
The Hoover song, I'd made it up. There is no
Suffering a bit
song
from
called
a
Hoover.
delay, aren't we?
Yeah, it's okay. There's no such song called Hoover with a TM. I just made that up. I was just Kleenex. DJ said, of course, there's a song called Kleenex with a TM. Yeah.
So what about a whole album of trademarked song names?
One man's love for Kleenex or Hoovers and all sorts of things like that. Magdalena doesn't know what a dictogloss is. I think you should explain.
Okay. Me? Okay. So a dictogloss is, so you have that text and you tell the text several times, Magdalena, to the students, and you tell it first of all very much for like a meaning point of view. So that's when you get them to draw the picture because they're thinking about the meaning, and then you tell them that you're going to dictate the text, but you're going to do it at normal speed, and so they have to expect not to be able to write down every word. They only write down the key words. So as you're telling them at fairly normal speed, they write down keywords, and then you get them together and they reconstruct the text using their keywords. They try and fill in all the gaps. And so the reason that's a really nice way of doing things is that they have to think about the language, the grammar and the syntax and all that kind of thing, how these keywords join together. And then you can focus on different aspects. So in the example I gave, you've got the the relative clauses. And it may be that they haven't used relative clauses, but they can see how those relative clauses work in the text. So it's a way of raising people's awareness of language, and also getting them to kind of create a text themselves, which you can then look at and study. So there we go. I hope that helps, Magdalena.
There's a little, I'll show you at the very end, a very, very, very quick idea for a dictogloss. If you hang around, Magdalena, sorry, I've been misreading your name there. And yes, Michelle's going to write. That's a good idea. And yeah, thanks, DJ.
Nice one.
Anyway, let's get to image number 2, Daniel. Okay. Image number 2, and you said you were not going to withhold this one, but here's the thing, Daniel. There's always the potential to withhold an image and just add a little extra stage.
Yes.
So look, how are you going to withhold this image?
This is true. Well, actually, it's true. They don't need to see the image at all. You don't need to see it. I can just tell you about it. So
There's so much you could
this one is
describe.
about the nature lover in me. So I was trying to. Yeah. Okay. Well, I can't actually remember the photo, and I haven't got it in front of me, so I'm going to have to do it from memory. So you can tell me if I'm right or not. But this photo, the three photos I've chosen, sort of hopefully reflect different aspects of me and who I am. And this is very much about the nature lover in me. So it's a picture of me with an animal. Can you guess what the animal is? I'll give you a clue. I'm holding the animal under my arm like that, sort of thing.
Can I say something? Because
see.
not
I know
only
you've seen the photo, but maybe someone else can guess the animal.
But the interesting thing about this photograph is not only are you holding the animal, but you're also wearing the same animal.
I am. I've got a T-shirt with it on. That's true. A
Yeah.
snake or a sloth. Nice choice. I can just imagine the sloth draped around my neck or something like that. No, it's not a snake or sloth. It's not a chicken. A piglety. I like that. A little piglety. It's not a pig either. No. I'll give you a clue. It's a bird. It's a kind of bird, and it's a bird that's well loved. It's a popular bird.
This is a nice, it's nice. It's a really nice.
Well, we'll see.
Question, and there's also the environment. So the animal that he's holding is very much related to the environment in which he's standing. So if it was a sloth, maybe he would be in Costa Rica in the jungle. Sorry.
Yes. I'm very much standing. I'm standing very much in this bird's environment. But anyway, I won't keep the suspense any longer. I think the closest person was probably DJ with Peacock. Oh no, DJ's got it. He's bang on it. It's a pink flamingo, DJ. I don't know how you got there, but you did. It is a flamingo. And the reason I'm holding a flamingo is that there's a big operation in Spain, in the south, in Andalusia, near where I live, in a lake called Fuente Piedra. And every year, hundreds of people get together, literally like 400 or 500 people, all get together to do this ringing operation where we ring flamingos' legs. We don't ring their necks, we ring their legs. We put rings on, identification rings. And it's absolutely bonkers, because you think of bird watching as being this. Yes, please do. Yeah. Let's see it. There we go. So there's me with my flamingo, and as Jamie says, I'm also wearing the T-shirt. We're all wearing T-shirts, and the T-shirts have different colors. There's so many of us in this operation that there are different teams with different colored T-shirts. So you can see someone at the back there with a black T-shirt, which is the cool one to have. And other people get the nasty orange one or the green one, and which they know they're not going to wear. But my daughter now wears this T-shirt as her pajamas. And I wasn't standing on one leg. No, I should have done. And so it's this bonkers thing where we get together the night before, 400 of us, and in a big school hall. And it's not pink, no, because it's a baby. That's right, Chris. And we get given our instructions, and we get put into teams and all the rest of it. And then the following morning at about 4 o'clock in the morning, we all get together and drive down in a massive convoy to this lake. And we circle the lake. We create this massive human circle. We've all got these long sticks to make ourselves seem wider than we are. And we move in on this flamingo colony where the chicks are. And we slowly walk in. This lake is very shallow. It's only a foot or two deep. So we're wading through this mud and fango in Spanish. The word fango is this really disgusting, smelly mud. And we walk through towards in the dark. And as dawn is breaking, we're sort of circled. Now we're just a few hundred meters around. And in the middle is this colony of flamingos, hundreds of babies. The adults at a certain point all take flight because they're scared of us. So they will fly away and fly over our heads and leave us to it. And then we circle them, and then we corral them. We then herd these baby flamingos who are perfectly capable of walking and running. and we get them into this big pen, and then from the pen we take them out, we measure them, we weigh them, we do blood samples, we measure their beaks, we take photographs, and we put identification tags on them. And all of this data is very important for science because it allows people to monitor flamingo populations. And flamingos are one of those birds which live in very vulnerable areas, because wetlands are a particularly sensitive area to human activity. And it's it's an absolutely fantastic thing. I've done it a couple of times, and it's been an incredible moment. So what do you think about that, Jamie?
I think that's amazing. How difficult is it to put because ringing, as you pointed out, is very different. There's two kinds of ringing, but how difficult is it to put a ring on a flamingo's leg? Is the flamingo happy, or does it resist?
I don't think the flamingos are happy. I think they're relatively calm. And what's interesting is there's often a few adults that stay with the chicks, and I think their job is to keep them calm. I think there's perhaps a communication between the adults saying, you go off, I'll stick here, I'm feeling brave, I'll stay here with the young ones. But yeah, I don't do the ringing. I'm a volunteer. There are vets on board, there are bird ornithologists and university people. They do all of the expert work, and my job is more assisting them or transporting chicks from one station to the other. So once they've been ringed, then they are taken to for measurements, and then they're taken somewhere else, and we all have different jobs. So we're told how to carry them. We're shown how to carry them, like I am there, but we leave the expert stuff to them.
Chris says that this is really serious bird watching, and so when I said before that you do this, we joked about you doing this as a way, not as an incidental keeping fit. It is actually, as you've just seen, heavy core bird watching. So yeah, it's not just the cycling, but the lifting as well.
Yeah. No, it's less exercise, more just being outdoors. I just like being outdoors and being with animals and birds and plants.
DJ, I love the imagery you're describing, almost like a military encircling special operations in the dead of night. Yeah. Just in case you don't know, but it's very possible, there's two words that can be confused here because they're homophones, and Dan already mentioned them. One is they're both ringing, to ring, but one is to put a ring on the bird's foot, spelt like a ring, like a wedding ring, R-I-N-G. But there's another word that begins with W, W-R-I-N-G, which is what you do to poor chickens as a means of execution before you cook them. You wring their necks. And you might also say that if you're a parent, I'll wring your neck. That's maybe more of a grandmother, isn't it, than a parent? I'll wring your neck. So old-fashioned, easy to mistake, but important to not confuse, I guess. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dan. That was lovely.
There's more to this story, and I just wanted to add, and it's a more negative side of the story, which I wanted to bring up. And the story of this photo is I'd been working all morning and carrying these flamingos, but of course we all want souvenirs. We all want photos of ourselves with the flamingos. And I realized it was right near the end, and I hadn't had a photograph taken yet. And this woman came up to me, and she had a flamingo, and she asked me if I wouldn't mind taking a photograph of her. And she handed me her mobile phone, and I took a photo. And then I said, would you mind swapping over? And so she was very happy to do that, but it involved sort of manhandling the bird a little bit, and to transferring it. And as you can imagine, flamingos are very fragile creatures. Their legs are very long and very thin. And anyway, we did it, and it seemed okay. But the flamingo was perhaps being held a little bit too long, and they're all bunched up like that, and it's not very good for them because it's not very good for their circulation. Anyway, when I gave the flamingo back to this woman whose job it was to release the bird. So at the end of this process, we put them down on the ground, and then they all run back to the colony and back to their mums and dads. And she put this, and I was watching because we'd sort of had this special moment with this particular bird, her and I, and she popped it down on the floor, and the thing didn't get up. And it sometimes takes a few minutes for them to kind of get the circulation going again. But this one was sort of, we tried and propped it up on its legs, and it just sort of flopped down again. So unfortunately, we had to take it back to the vet, and there was a vet on hand for any injured birds. And there were a few birds like this that weren't sort of ready for walking again yet. And I don't know the end of this story, because I had to leave, and this, as I said, was right at the end of the morning. And when I left, the bird was still at the vet's and still not standing up. And this has troubled me, as you can imagine, that my possibly meddling too much in this bird's life just to get my cheap souvenir, just to get this photograph, might have injured the bird. And whenever I think about it, I get a pang of guilt. So that's the sort of negative side of the story, but it makes me think about this problem that we have in conservation. And as Jamie said, I'm one of the co-founding members of ELT Footprint, and we're trying to bring English language teaching and the fight against climate change together in different ways. And it's something that I'm very concerned about. And one of the issues is that there's a lot to fix on the planet. There's a lot of things we need to fix because we've messed it up. But sometimes the best way to fix something is just to leave it alone. And I think we have a tendency as humans to try and meddle. And perhaps we meddle too much with nature, and perhaps we just need to give them the space to thrive on their own. And that's the kind of conclusion I drew. And in fact, I spoke to another bird watching friend from the area after the event, and he said he did it once, and he thought it was far too interventionist, far too invasive a process, and that they get these data every year, and perhaps we don't need this data. We've got enough. Perhaps we should just leave them alone. So that's the kind of bitter end to that story, which makes it very meaningful for me.
That is sad. I know. You've never told me that before, and I think maybe that makes it more important to show the picture and tell that story about it.
Maybe
it's what you referred to as a sort of cheap thrill, you said, or a souvenir, and we all do this, but it's very good to be reflective about it. Let's just look at it again, because of the. I'm sure you didn't hurt it, Dan. You're a very gentle man and a gentleman.
I don't think so. I think it just needed a bit longer to get up. But, there's that question mark left hanging at the end of the day.
Yeah.
DJ's asked an interesting question. What's their average lifespan? We caught an adult. There was an adult in the group that we took and measured, and it had a ring. And what's amazing these days is people on them have the mobile phones. They have the access to databases. So this guy was able to look on his phone and find this flamingo, and it was 28 years old. It was born in the Camargue in the south of France, and that's where it was ringed. And we picked it up 28 years later. So it's still going strong then.
Wow. That's incredible.
Bonkers, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. Right, let's move on to your. Actually, just before we do, we've got a very special person's just popped up. Someone I've not seen for a long, long time. Did anyone come to the last week's LessonStream live when I told a story about a picture, and the story was called Romeo and Juliet and Nicolas? Well, the said Nicolas has just said, "Hello, Jamie. Nicolas here," and if you haven't seen it, I'll put the link here in the chat so you know what we're talking about. There's the link to the recording from last week's LessonStream Live. Nicolas, it's lovely to see you, and I hope to catch up with you sometime soon. I've still got to reply to your email that you sent. Thanks so much for sending me through those higher versions of the picture, which I'm using currently. Yes. Yeah. So Dan, should we move on to photograph number 3?
Yeah, okay. So this one is I suppose the photo is important. It's a brush with fame, first of all. So I get to interact with a famous person. It's about my dad. So there's a father-son connection. There's a bit of a coincidence in there as well, which I really like. And it's also about online shopping experiences. So I have never used this. I don't think I would use this as a lesson, but if I was to do that, I would ask people about interesting online shopping experiences, perhaps personal, where they have personal attention. You know, when you end up chatting to someone on the end of the line, and it's quite fun. And you realize that actually online shopping seems very impersonal, and most of the time it is completely impersonal. But if you're buying something from a little website or something, you often get chatting to the person, and it's quite good fun. And so I've got a question for you, Jamie. I would like you to think about your dad. Do you find it hard to buy your dad presents? Perhaps is it hard to think of presents for your dad?
Yes.
Or is it quite easy? Is he?
No. I find it so difficult that we've come to a bit of an arrangement, an agreement not to worry about presents for each other.
Not to buy presents. No, fair enough. I think my dad and I are at that point now as well. But occasionally, it might be his 75th birthday or something like that. It's a big one. Then I have to think of something, and it's not hard. So anyway, what was do you remember the last present you bought your dad?
Well, it was his 70. It was a big. Yeah, we had his 70th birthday. I actually had a piece of. It was funny because he has a great photograph that he loves, and I have an illustrator that I got the illustrator to turn the photograph that he likes into a sort of piece of art and turn it into sort of album cover because he's a musician.
Nice.
So that was it.
Nice. Yeah. That sounds great. So anyway, I'll tell you about my dad first of all. So one of the interesting things about my dad is that he is a scientist. He's a hobby scientist. He studied maths and physics at university, and ever since he's been really, really into cosmology, Einstein, relativity, speed of light, age of the universe, all of that stuff. And but the thing that a lot of people find very confusing about my dad is not only is he really into his science, he's also a vicar. He's a religious man, and he's retired now from both, really. But he's held these two worlds in his mind, in his hands, his whole life. There's the religious side of things, the belief about Christianity, and his scientific side. And a lot of people kind of only see contradiction there, can't understand. And I think one of the things my dad has taught me over the years is this sort of combining complex truths and finding ways of holding both to be true in your mind at the same time, that kind of idea. And he kind of passed that on to me. And the other thing he passed on to me was a certain geekiness. So I quite like my science. I don't understand the stuff he understands because I'm not a mathematician, but I'm definitely into the science side of things. And this took me down a YouTube rabbit hole. It often does. But there was one time a few years ago, I was needing a present for my dad. I was going down this YouTube rabbit hole, and the video was about Mobius strips. You familiar with a Mobius strip, Jamie?
Oh yeah, I love Mobius strips. In fact, my dad showed me a Mobius strip when I was a kid, and I've always remembered it.
Yes. So a Mobius strip, if anyone doesn't know, is if you think about this piece of paper, it's got two sides and it's got four edges, 1, 2, 3, 4. But I can magically turn this paper from two sides to one side and only one edge in one move, and that's to do this. So if I turn it around like this, if I turn it into a little loop, it's now still got the two sides, but it's now only got two edges. Okay, but if I then do this and put a twist in it and then join them together, this is a Mobius strip, and you'll see that the Mobius strip has only got one side. So if we follow one side around, we'll see that it goes all the way around. And also, if you follow one edge around, you'll find out that also continues in an infinite loop. So that's a Mobius strip. And mathematicians find these things really interesting because there's all sorts of stuff about it. Anyway, this YouTube video was talking about this, and then talking about equivalents of Mobius strips in different dimensions and different planes and different forms of them. And it mentioned a thing called a Klein bottle. And I think, Jamie, I think you've got, oh, first of all, there's a photo of my dad, I think. Do you want to show them a photo of my dad? His name is Garth. And I think there's a picture of him. There we go. There's my dad. I'm sure I haven't asked him permission, but I'm sure he'd be flattered that we're talking about him. That's not his house. That's actually, I think it's a meeting house for a cathedral or something. It just happens to be called Garth House. And yes, so that's my dad. He's a lovely chap. And I was thinking about this present. Anyway, they mentioned on this YouTube clip this thing called a Klein bottle. And I'd never heard of one of those, but if you show the next photo, Jamie, there's a picture of one. There we go. This is a Klein bottle. And in the same way as a Mobius strip, if you follow the sides around, you'll see that there is only one side. So unlike a normal bottle, if you imagine you're following your finger in the mid, you're going down the middle tube, and then you come out, and then you're on the outside of the flask. And then you'll find yourself going on the outside of the tube. So it's a one-sided volume. So it has volume, but it's it's called a non-orientable manifold. It has no edges and only one surface. So there we go. That's a Klein bottle. And I thought this would make a great gift for my dad. So I went online to see if you can buy them, and indeed you can. And I went to this absolutely crackers website called kleinbottle.com. I think you've got the link. And I don't go there now, but I do recommend visiting this website because it's absolutely total batshit crazy. And it says, like, on the front page, it says, need a 0 volume bottle, searching for a one-sided surface, want the ultimate in non-orientability, get an Acme Klein bottle. And he's called it the Acme Klein Bottle Company. And then if you then go and buy one, this is the little baby one, which I bought my dad. If you buy one of those, when you go to the checkout, you have to put your address in. At the top, it says number of dimensions in your universe. And then you have to choose the number of dimensions in your universe. He's absolutely crackers. Anyway, so this story is about how I had this very personal online shopping experience with this crazy man that makes these Klein bottles, and he's got thousands of them in his basement, and he sells them, I imagine, very, very slowly to weird people like me who have these ideas. And his name is Clifford Stoll, and I'd never heard of him before, but I got in touch with him, and he got back to me. He'd never actually sent one to Europe before, so he was very concerned about the postage and packaging. And he very kindly, not only did he package it up extremely well and box it up, he then took photographs of the whole process of him packaging this thing up, and then he took it to the post office, and he has a photograph of him holding it before he takes it on his bike to the post office to sort of guarantee, to show me or prove to me that he's actually sent this thing. And sure enough, a week or two later, it arrived, and I was able to give it to my dad. And my dad was really chuffed with the present. But the photo I'm going to show you is the photo of this man, Clifford Stoll, with the package in his hand. And it just tickled me so much that this person would go out of his way for one. I don't know, this was like $34 or something like that. I can't remember how much it cost, but it wasn't expensive at all. And but yet this man took probably the whole afternoon to deliver it to me in order to give it to my dad. So that's the photo. So I think we can see the photo now, Jamie.
Oops.
There he is. There's Clifford. And this isn't the end of the story, but there he is. He seemed like a very nice man, ever so bonkers, and clearly a science. And there we go. That's Clifford with my dad's Klein bottle ready for postage from the United States. Yes, that's right, DJ. He's actually quite well known, and I didn't realize this, but he has quite a history with computer hacking. He was one of the early people that sort of created security for computers, because he was a a complete polymath, and he's not just an astronomer, but he's also a technician. His house is this ridiculous treasure trove of stroboscopes and weird experiments and stuff like that. Not to say literally thousands of Klein bottles stashed under in this basement, which he can only access with a robot which he designed. He's got this robot which he sends to get Klein bottles from boxes deep under his house. And he's written books. That's right, DJ. Wow. Yeah. So anyway, I didn't know anything about this until about 5 years later. I was working for National Geographic Learning. I was writing a book, but at the time I was doing some extra activities. Now, some of you may know the Voices books, Keynote and Perspectives, and they have the TED Talks in them. And so in my research for writing the book, I watched literally hundreds of TED Talks. I'm fed up to here with TED Talks. I never want to see another TED Talk again. But as I was going through, I stumbled upon Clifford Stoll, and he's got his own TED Talk. I think he would get on well with my dad. He's an absolute treasure, incredible. Anyway, I watched this TED Talk, and he's absolutely bonkers. If the closest I can get to describing him without you actually watching the TED Talk, which you can do because Jamie's sent you the link, so please do watch it after this, do you remember Back to the Future, the movie, Jamie?
Oh, yes.
Well, who does he look like?
The grandfather, whose name I've forgotten, but is also the inspiration for Rick out of Rick and Morty.
That's true, he is. And his name is Doc Brown. I would be very surprised if the person that came up with Doc Brown and the image of it all didn't know about Clifford Stoll, because he is like Doc Brown. He's this crazy guy, runs around, sticking weird stuff on his head, experimenting on himself, interested in absolutely everything. And that's Clifford Stoll. He's the most incredible, like, mad scientist you could imagine. Wonderful guy. So I was watching this thing, and it's all about science and measuring the speed of sound, and it's a TED Talk that's all over the place. It wouldn't be allowed now. It's about, when is it? 2006. So it's nearly 20 years old now. It's my favorite TED Talk by far, because it's so un-TED, and I couldn't use it in the book at all. And it's called The Call to Learn. The Call to Learn is the name of the TED Talk, and the reason it's called The Call to Learn is because right at the end he tells an anecdote, and this anecdote is about his university days back in the University of Buffalo, 1971, I think, when he was a young student. And at that time, there was the Vietnam War was going on, and as I'm sure everyone knows, there were lots of student riots at universities around the country, around the states, protesting against the Vietnam War. And he got embroiled in this riot. He was just walking through campus and ended up being chased by a riot policeman who with a tear gas gun. And he ran around, and he found refuge in a tower, and he climbed up the tower, and he got to the first floor, and then the second floor, and then the third floor, and then there was nowhere else to go, and this guy's climbing up the stairs, and he ends up in this bell tower. He's the last room, and it's where the bells are, and he's sort of hidden up there, and he's managed to lock the door, and he's just staying up there, and he's looking down, and there's this riot going on. You can see a tear gas and people being taken away in vans and stuff way below him, and he's up there in this tower, and he's looking at this bell, and the bell is one of those very important Victorian bells, and it has an inscription written on it, and the inscription, he reads it, and I'm going to read it to you now, and I want you to tell me what's the key, why is this important. So it says, the inscription says, "All truth is one. In this light, may science and religion labor here together for the steady evolution of mankind, from darkness to light, from prejudice to tolerance, from narrowness to broad-mindedness." What do you think, Jamie?
Oh, I know immediately why the relevance of it, the gift for your father, isn't it? It just... Is that what you're getting at, right? Yeah. It couldn't be more perfect.
Yeah, exactly. So this inscription on this bell is very much my dad. It's about finding truth, looking for truth, and using science and religion to do that. And I just thought that was such an amazing, weird coincidence that this journey ended with this inscription, which took me all the way back to the beginning and looking for a present for my dad. And there you go. That's my favorite photo.
Oh, I love that. Does I'm sure your dad, that became a story of his that he would tell, would it? Was your
it meant a lot more to me than it. I got all excited about it, and of course I told him the story, and he wasn't that impressed. It was a bit disappointing. You know what dads can be like, just getting the wrong end of the stick.
Yeah. You expect him to go, yeah, this is amazing, I can't believe it, but maybe it's important for you. It's a lovely story, and I love the way you took us through it. It's a little story with lots of surprises and connections, and it all comes back to the beginning. Yeah, it's brilliant.
Okay, well, I'm going to tell you a secret now about that story, which is I've told it. I've lied. And and so I wanted to talk to you about and ask you about this, whether this would be something you'd do. Okay, so the actual story is that I saw the TED Talk first, and that gave me the idea. I made up the thing about the YouTube rabbit hole and Mobius strips. I saw the TED Talk, saw the Klein bottle in this TED Talk, and that was my inspiration. So then when I did order it for my dad, I already knew about this man Clifford Stoll, but I thought it would be a more fun way to do it that way around. It's still meaningful to me because of this inscription at the end, but I wanted to draw it out. What do you think about that, Jamie? Is that really dishonest?
Is it dishonest? Well, which version did you tell your own father? Did you tell him it was a coincidence?
I think I told. No, I told him the truth. I told him the truth, I think.
Okay, because there's different ways to approach this. And I think if you're asking me personally, this is a very personal thing. I would say I'm more inclined to go with the truth and find a different way to tell it, because it's a very good story, and you don't need to actually. I think there's got a lot going to it, a lot going for it. I quite like the idea. Okay, if I was going to be a little bit cheeky to tell the story, I would tell the story as you've told it to us, as if that's the story you told your dad. Tried to kind of elaborate this big coincidence, and then tell us the truth, but then tell us that your dad wasn't all that impressed, which is quite a funny way. But even that's still not the way it was it? So I do tend to be more inclined to not. There's when we're telling stories, you don't have to include all the facts and all the details and all the way things happened. Sometimes we have to leave things out. Sometimes we have to play with things in order to make the story fit and work. But I think I really like all the elements of this. And in fact, I love the way it all came back in a loop. But the fact that it was a coincidence for me personally didn't necessarily add all that much more to it. I think that it might be quite nice. I think if I was going to tell it, what I would do is start off with that story. Okay, start with the story. Don't tell us where it comes from. Tell us how much for you it relates to your father, and then tell us the story going through the package, the order, the photograph, the TED Talk, and then at the very end saying, by the way, this is where I got the story. So we're making that what I often call a delightful connection, but you're not going to fall back on this coincidence, which that would be my feedback. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I'd want to play around with it a bit. Because part of the story is me distorting the story, in the sense that if I was going to. I was very happy to tell you the secret at the end, to tell you the fact that I'd messed around with the chronology, and that it wasn't quite as meaningful as that. But the meaningfulness was still there, but it was just the way I told it. And you mentioned it. You like the fact that it came back to the beginning, so a little bit like a Mobius strip. You know, we could use that analogy to sort of talk about this, how the story is like a Mobius strip.
By the way, we had a funny joke came in. I missed it. It was where was it? It was a joke about a Mobius ring or a Mobius. I call them Mobius strips. You call them Mobius rings. There,
DJ.
DJ. Yes. Did you see that? Going to make a joke about a Mobius strip. Realize it's too one-sided. Yeah, that's funny, isn't it? Yeah, I don't. That's my. We can talk about this more because I'll probably have more to say afterwards, Dan, and we can talk about this. But I think there's a lot of ways to approach a story, and that's. I think there's different ways you could do it, and we can talk about them. So thank you. Let me ask you a question, Dan. Do you remember Cadiz 2019? I was visiting you, and we were walking back to your house.
Yes, I was.
And we'd have been at the beach, and you'd been teaching Ollie how to dig holes in the sand. I remember that because I took a photograph. And on the way home, guess what we saw? We saw a beautiful sunset. And I stopped to take a picture. But Coco, your dog, didn't approve and decided to stand in the middle of me and the sunset, thus ruining the shot. Do you remember that?
Okay. I bet it didn't ruin the shot. I bet because it's a sunset shot, wasn't it? So
yeah,
any kind of photo bombing is going to help.
There's you and Ollie in the beach.
Yeah, I don't remember that photo.
And there's the sunset. I should have started with this.
In the way.
Yes, I wanted to test your memory. That's Coco Dog. I wasn't going to include that, Dan, but I had to because I prepared it. I wanted you to have the last word with your story.
That's great.
Give us the last word.
No,
Dan.
I don't know. It's been a real pleasure. I haven't got any more to say about my photos, but I've really enjoyed talking about them. And thinking about them in a different way, sort of. With the first one, I'd already sort of done the kind of lesson. I'm not sure any of the other stories are really lesson material, but they are, I hope, interesting stories. And I hope you've enjoyed them.
I think they very much are. I think they are. There's talking to your students about either of these stories, one for your passion and love for nature and birds, is incredibly valuable for the classroom. If you were my teacher, my language teacher, I couldn't think of something I would enjoy more than a conversation initiated by a teacher and a photograph like that. And similarly for your Mobius strip story, I would definitely want that.
Okay.
Yes, it's been quite lovely. And thank you so much for spending the time with us. And thank you to everybody who's been here. We've gone over time. We've gone over time. That's the nature of the beast, I suppose. But if any of you are still here and you know anybody or you yourself would like to do one of these sessions with me or 3 favorite photographs, you just let me know and we'll set it up. We'll sort it out. Okay. And if you're still here, could you do me a little favor?
I can highly recommend it.
And like this video on YouTube. It helps. It helps a lot if you like the video. And so thank you so much. And Chris, I think that's maybe a little bit of a how long is a piece of string question, isn't it? It can take. I mean, I know that photograph of the boat, Dan, is one that's evolved for you over time. Is that right?
Yeah, I don't think the original idea, it was just a question of writing the text. I think that was the main thing. And the rest of it was from your book, Jamie, from the images book, which I'm sure not everyone will know, but I highly recommend it.
Well, we're moving on in the LessonStream
I
story.
can't find it, but it's here somewhere.
We're moving on to picture telling, a picture telling unit in the LessonStream story course. This is all very relevant, and it's going to be a really, it's the unit I've been looking forward to so much for so long. So it's coming next. So that's all for LessonStream members. So if you're up for that, check it out. Just go to lessonstream.com. Dan, thank you so much to you. You're a good man, you're a good friend, you're a great teacher, and you're a great storyteller. I should say you're a great man, a great friend, and a great teacher, and a great storyteller. And sometimes you're called Dan, and sometimes you're called Daniel. Give my love to your family and your dog. And you're going to have the last word.
Thank you very much.
All right.
No, that's for you. Thank you very much. It's been lots of fun. And as I said, I highly recommend it. It was really nice to think about, to choose, a bit like Desert Island Discs in a way. Choosing your top records, choosing your top photos to talk about, I think is a really nice, interesting exercise.
Great. All right. Well, thanks very much to everybody. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you at the next LessonStream Live. Okay. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.